Welcome to the Flight Club Podcast, a woman's guide to leaning out. We give you a behind-the-scenes look at business launch and growth through the stories of successful female entrepreneurs. Here's your host, Felina Hansen, founder and CEO of Hera Hub.
Hello and welcome. I am super excited to share my conversation with the fantastic Sara Clarke Williams. She is CEO and, of course, founder of a company called Fab Fempreneurs. She took that leap back in 2008. She left her corporate job. She was working in organizational development consulting to become an entrepreneur. So we're going to talk about her background, her story. She specializes in what she calls helping folks find their sweet spot, which we will talk about the sweet spot, because Sara talks quite a bit about that and gives her formula actually in the Flight Club book. So it's perfect that we are having her on the podcast. I like to point out when she's not doing business, you will find her hiking. She's a big hiker. She also runs half marathons, which I love. I love that you're a fellow runner. She's very, conscious around animal welfare, supporting animal welfare organizations. I also love that she likes to sip scotch, which is it's not a talent, a taste that I'm working on. And she loves to find the best burger joints in San Diego with her husband, Chris. Welcome to the show today, Sara.
Hey, Felina, glad to be here.
All right, we'll have to talk scotch later, but let's, because I am learning scotch and whiskey. My boyfriend is like so into whiskey, and I'm like, okay, it's an acquired taste. I'm working on it little by little, but all right, we'll save that for the end.
Tasting.
Yeah, exactly. Wine all day long, as you know, but scotch and whiskey I'm working on. All right, let's go back. Take us back along your career path. Where are you from? Where'd you go to school? All that good stuff, and then we'll talk about your corporate life before your entrepreneurial life.
Yeah, so I am a San Diego native, growing up in North County, San Diego, and always loved, even as a kid, always loved being inquisitive and asking questions from people, and found myself at the age of 16 on my own, writing my own goals for the year. Mm-hmm. And so that started when I was about 16, and I started getting an interest in like gender differences and communication and personality types and all of that good stuff. And that really led me into my career. That really led me to choose psychology for my undergraduate education. And so that's, I know we're going to talk about, how I got started in business in my career in a few minutes, but that was a really big part of who I was as a teenager. And love the San Diego business community. And now, of course, so that's a big part of my life now, but also leading me throughout the years to where I am today is all those resources and like yourself. But yeah, so do you have any other specific questions?
No, I definitely slow down, girl, slow down. Okay, so
I'm like, I don't want to get too far ahead here. I'm like, what else do you want to know about my background?
Yes. Yeah, no, definitely. We're gonna go back. I want to go way back to 16, your goal setting. Why? Like, was there an influence in your life? Was there a teacher? Was there a parent? Was there somebody in your life that prompted this curiosity, around psychology and learning and even goal setting?
Yeah, I can't point to one particular influence. It's funny that you asked, because I was thinking about that, what really triggered that for me. I don't know that it was one particular person or influence. I think it was a combination of observations about myself and my path. And I was very spiritual at a young age. I was, practiced with having that reflection time and self-awareness. And I just started asking myself questions about,
Mm.
what is it that I want and what do I want my life to look like? And I also started just having this desire to, make certain accomplishments. And in order to do that, I needed to be specific about, well, what are those things? And okay, well, how am I going to get there? So these were just sort of natural questions that started coming, then that led to more questions that led to those actions.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely people, leaders in my life, in my church, in my school environment, having, certain conversations definitely, influenced me in terms of growing as a young person and fulfilling my potential, definitely. And that was actually very impactful to have as a young female teenager, to have other women and men in my life who would encourage me to, don't stop, do what you want to do. You can do this. And not only that, but, giving the opportunities to lead and having that. I think that's actually a big factor, looking back, is to, when you give people, when you invite somebody to do something, to take on a role or participate in a project or whatever it might be, that gives this person a chance to get that experience. And so I can look back and see that in many ways with what influenced me to sort of keep going on my own in that vein was, having those awesome people in my circle that
Mm-hmm.
would acknowledge my contribution and then invited me to, do something, even if it was for the first time. And
Yeah.
I sucked at it.
Yeah. That's okay. That's all part
Yeah,
of the process.
exactly. So that evolved, over the years and led to, making the decision to, go to college and what to major in and all of that
Yeah.
are a lot of those factors and my own experience of my own journey of, being clear on who I am and what I wanted and going through that process and wanting to support other people to do that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's what you help others do now. But before we get to that, so I just want to touch on a few things here, Sarah. So you stayed in San Diego. You majored in psychology. San Diego's a lovely place to grow up and stay in, and we're glad you did. Before we get to, I know a couple years later you went back to school to get your master's degree in industrial organizational psychology from
Yes.
Alliant, also here in San Diego. Um, Take us in the early years of your career. I know you worked in the travel industry a bit. You worked for Cymer, which is a huge company here in San Diego. So you went like big corporate for a little while there, about 4 years. Just weave us through this decision process. You kind of started in the corporate world. Obviously, not everything was perfect there because you decided, at some point to go out on your own. So talk about those decisions.
Sure. Yes. So, I'll go back before my high tech corporate job to, making the decision to go back to school and get my master's.
Hmm.
Um, I already, I always knew I wanted to get my master's, but I just didn't know what it was going to be in. And so with my undergraduate in psychology, I was working in the nonprofit community and loved it. But also was thinking, okay, I want to get my master's. What is it going to be in? I kind of was leaning toward getting a marriage and family therapist degree license. And I had some time thinking about that and talking with my coworkers who were in that nonprofit job were psychologists, they were social workers. We all worked with the same clients, but my role in that was a life skills facilitator. And so I worked with women who were in these programs, drug and alcohol treatment programs, to really work on different areas of their life and support them with the tools to be able to do that. And I loved it. But I, was asking, the questions about the reality of working on a deeper level, sort of in a therapy conversation. And I just was honest with myself that the reality of day to day of holding that space for people hour after hour, day after day, just wasn't what I wanted to be doing. And I just felt exhausted thinking about it. So, and the other piece that's really important when you're making these decisions to move forward in your career, in your business is, checking in with yourself and being honest with yourself and being okay with your answer to yourself. And for me, that was the case. And for me, I was honest with myself that bottom line, Felina, I just didn't have the patience to sit there, and kind of go over the same things with people week after week. I really wanted to support somebody in moving forward and being able to see somebody move forward and make progress and take action. And so I will say, impatience was a big factor for me in choosing industrial organizational psychology over going the therapy route. And so after grad school, I immediately got the corporate job at Cyber. And, it was primarily for practical reasons because I was not passionate, nor am I now, about the semiconductor industry and
come on,
chips that go into this, that ultimately reach an end product, which we don't even use most of the stuff that they do. So I was like, okay, here's an opportunity for me to work in this corporate environment that I've never, I've not really worked in a, like you said, a big corporate environment before. And, it was an amazing learning experience. And I was there for 4 years. And, really was, I call it a business boot camp because I literally was able to learn how a company like that size works, how it grows, and be a really pivotal part in creating improvements, working with managers and their teams. And so I liked a lot of those elements, but I didn't like a couple things. And one of them was the whole corporate environment can often be what I would say is toxic. So I experienced it as toxic. We won't go into all the details as to what those things are, but I experienced it as that. And so I the longer I was there, the more I just felt like my soul was getting sucked out of me, if you will. And then the other factor was I just really was feeling that there was so much that I had to offer that wasn't being allowed to be on the table. And I started really desiring to make a bigger impact with people. And I just couldn't see that I would be able to do that in that environment. And so I really started about 2 years in, I started doing some soul searching and looking at, what are my other options? I loved my degree program. I love all these different elements of it. I love the coaching and consulting piece. And so that led me to start doing some research in the coaching and consulting industry and what does that look like to go out on your own, and did some informational interviews with 3 different types of coaches in the San Diego community at the time. And that was a big part of the process is going through those steps and then, reading some go-to books like What Color is Your Parachute, and literally going through I think it's called the flower exercise. There's a flower exercise in that book.
I missed that.
Yeah, and it basically asks you, what are your passions? What are your interests? It has you kind of go through all of the paid or even volunteer positions that you had and what you liked about it, what you didn't like about it, what were the skills that you loved using the most. And so I went through this basically, internal process of, looking at all these things and confirming that I wanted to be a professional coach as an entrepreneur. So I wanted to take that on my own and focus on, initially with my first business, which was called Launch Your Life, focus on supporting women to do that, to launch their life, because I recognized that a lot of people, a lot of women especially, could kick major butt in their job, but when it came to figuring out what they really wanted and how to go after it on their own outside of their job, outside of the box, they weren't doing it and they didn't know how.
Mm-hmm.
So they were just feeling stuck and unfulfilled in their career or their personal lives. And so that's really what triggered me to want to go out on my own and start my first business. And so then once I made that decision, I decided to, start taking those steps on the down low, if you will, while still employed, because, they can be funny about that.
Yeah.
And just really start working on building the foundation for my first business. And, what's my process? What, the branding, who do I really want to work with? All those questions that you ask yourself when you're when you want to launch a business.
So I want to pause on this decision here, Sara, before we get into your current business and what you do, who you serve, all that good stuff. So you're working for a big company, very stable. I'm sure the pay was, fair and
fabulous.
Were there any points either in your own mind or, in your close friends and family where it was like, what am I doing?
Yeah, so I left, eventually I left, after 4 years, I left that job in August of 2008, but I didn't know that was when I was going to leave. And so kind of going back to January of that year, just sort of, when you're thinking about things at the beginning of the year, where you're at, and making some decisions, I made the decision to officially register the business at the beginning of February. So it was like taking these little small steps forward and making these decisions, putting one foot in front of the other, that gave me that courage. But for sure, in my mind, I'm thinking this is the year, and this is the year that I'm going to leave. But I didn't know when, because that was scary, making that date.
Yeah.
So it was a little scary, obviously. What am I doing? Am I really going to do, am I really going to leave this job that's paying me this much money and bonuses and these benefits? And you know what? The answer always came back, yes, but I just didn't know exactly when. And also there were fears of how am I going to survive? What do I have to do to prepare? So it went from how the heck am I going to leave this to how do I prepare to be ready to leave? And so little steps, look back then I was going to Starbucks at least once a day, if not twice, and spending, no joke, $400 a month at Starbucks. So, let's be honest, that can be a car payment. I know some people's car payments are like $600 or whatever, but you could get a car payment for that amount. And so that was one of the things I looked at to help me start preparing is what's my lifestyle? What are my habits? How can I support myself to have the courage to leave and to be prepared to leave? And of course I had those conversations, with my husband and my mom and some friends and some other people who had already taken the leap, some business owners, and that was really helpful. But ultimately it just, I remember one of the things that was like, okay, that's it, was, and this is a very personal aspect of my story, is in the summer of 2008, my husband and I, we had bought a house a few years prior, and we found ourselves upside down in an adjustable rate mortgage. And so we couldn't refinance, and we couldn't, I can't remember the right terminology, but we found ourselves where the monthly mortgage was continuing to increase, and we were paying almost $4,000 a month for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath house, and which is ridiculous. So we just got to the point that summer where we couldn't, I think it was June, where we couldn't make a full mortgage payment, and the mortgage company wouldn't allow a partial payment, and so they said you have to go, default or whatever it is. And so my husband and I took a staycation during that summer in July, the end of July. And we had a sort of a come to Jesus meeting, if you will, of what are we doing? Is this the life we want? What are we working so hard for? We both didn't want to be in our jobs anymore. But we were saying, so that we could pay our mortgage. But here we
Yeah.
were not being able to pay the mortgage. So we had basically that summer, we completely shifted our entire definition of success. And we
Mm-hmm.
realized it was no longer about having a nice car, having the house, having this amount of money, having all these ducks in a row. All those things are great, but it wasn't getting us it wasn't what we wanted, and
Yeah.
we were stressed. And so I made the decision when I went back from that vacation to put my notice in. And
Mm.
the confirmation of putting that notice in was when I got to work, there was a very lengthy email in my inbox from my boss. And it was, let's just say, long story short, it was just kind of the last straw. And
Mm.
just, gave me that courage to say, you know what, it's enough. It's
Yeah.
enough. Like the line is drawn, and it's enough. And I'm going to do this. I'm scared out of my mind, but I'm going to do this. And I had a conversation with one of my internal clients during the weeks that I had given my notice, because I had to inform them. And I said, I'm scared. I gave a note.
Mm-hmm.
I'm scared. But he goes, Sarah, do you believe that you're moving in the right direction? Do you believe that this business, what you're going to be doing to help people this way, is what you're supposed to be doing? Is that the direction in your heart of hearts that you're supposed to be doing, you're supposed to go? And I said, yes. He said, okay, well, that means you're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
And that gave me courage and that confidence to be okay with the level of uncertainty, but also with that other more important aspect of certainty, knowing that you're moving in the right direction, and that when you know that, it means you're going to figure it out.
I love that. Thank you so much for talking about that, because it's so important, as so many people go through this same process, and women in particular, making this decision to, leave. Oftentimes, most of the time, it's a very lucrative situation to kind of go out into the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot. And I mean, to your point, this is 2008. I mean, the whole world it felt like at the time was imploding. I mean, you, like millions of other Americans, had, kind of gotten, I don't want to say caught up, but there was so much hype around buying a
Yep.
house and own home
Mm-hmm.
ownership and how easy it is. And, I mean, that's
Yep.
what got our country sort of into trouble, if you will. So I'm so glad you made those decisions. So you've been an entrepreneur for a long time, since 2008, well over 10 years. I want to take a few minutes to talk about the work you're currently doing. I know you've had, a couple different businesses in that period of time. Your current company, Fab Fempreneurs. So two questions. What is a fempreneur? It's probably obvious, but I just want to make sure that we're articulating that. And then talk about the sweet spot and how you came up with
Sure.
that concept.
Sure. Yeah. So Fempreneur is just simply combining female and entrepreneurs together, because I'm a nerd and like that. And I like to combine words together. And it's fun, and it feels empowering at the same time. So that's sort of how I came up with that. And we're fabulous. So fabulous in many ways. So we're Fab Fempreneurs. And that is, so in terms of your question about what is the sweet spot concept. So when I was thinking about what does it take to be a Fab Fempreneur, I was thinking about what are all of those, things that she encompasses. What does she do? And that led me to identify create the Fab Four Formula, which is a visual sort of formula of, the four areas that we all, no matter what stage of business or industry that we're in, we all really need to be mindful of, and that all four of these areas need to reinforce each other. And so the four areas are head, heart, habits, and hub. And so there's, I know we don't have to go into detail with each of those, and you can check out the book, Fight Club book. And, basically head and heart are more internal, but they're setting direction, being creative and inspired. And then habits and hub are more external, what you're actually doing, and then the people and places that you surround yourself with. And so when all four of those areas are strong and supporting each other, you are going to position yourself in what I call the sweet spot of your business. And essentially that means that you're getting the greatest possible results with the greatest ease. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to have challenges. It's more so that you can see that the effort that you're making and that you're taking are making a difference, are producing the results that you want, and you're feeling like you're in that groove, hence the sweet spot.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Yeah, I love the visual. It's simple, it's logical. I think people kind of overcomplicate things a little bit as it relates to business. And to your point, oftentimes I think for women, we say yes to everything. We're so, spreading ourselves thin in many situations that just kind of getting back to the basics of what am I meant to be doing? Why? Who's my tribe? Like, just keep it simple.
Yeah, and definitely, I mean, and there's specific things that you want to be doing within each of those areas. I'll just give one quick example. Having your head in the game means, that as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, leader of your business, you're setting the direction. You're getting clear on what's your vision, and then setting a very clear, tangible, plan to fulfill that vision. When you're not doing that, but you're doing the other things, it's like you're spinning your wheels. So when you're not setting direction, when your head is not in the game, you're not clear on what your priorities are, it's hard to then, for example, manage your time effectively because you don't really know what your priorities are and where to focus your energy and your time, for example. So the concept there is when even one of those things is weak or missing, you're going to put yourself in a corner. So if your listeners are thinking, oh, I want to see this, they can check it out, of course, on our website or in the Flight Club book, and you can see the corners that are there and the problem that happens, that the symptom that pops up in that corner, and that's how you'll be able to identify if there's an area that you need to work on. Of course, there is an assessment that I have that goes with that to actually drill down and give you a score in each of those areas so that you can kind of get more clear on specific things that you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. And if our listeners want to go find that assessment, where do they go for that?
Absolutely. So we can connect. You can also take the assessment on our website, so fabfempreneurs.com. And you can always connect with me on social media as well, personally, or Fab Fempreneurs as well on Facebook.
Perfect. And I want to talk about, you've got some really exciting things coming up in your business, Sara. I know you do one-on-one coaching. I know you work in groups and you lead women in conferences as well. Talk about some of the upcoming exciting things you have going on here in 2020.
Yeah, so I'm super excited to say that this year, 2020, we are having our third annual Fab Fempreneur Fest, F-E-S-T, and that is a 2-day business building conference and retreat. So it's a 2-day business building conference with retreat elements woven throughout. And that is coming up in September 25th and 26th, and we'll be having that in Carlsbad. And that is really all about bringing positive, proactive, growth-minded women entrepreneurs together in one space for that 2-day period of time to really provide them with the time and space to work on their business and to get clear on things that they want to get clear on, really, shut out the noise and have clarity on what's next and what does their next level look like, and create a plan, a very specific plan of what that looks like with guidance and resources as well as community all in that one space so that they literally leave feeling totally ready and know exactly what they're going to do, instead of feeling like a lot of times, we've all been to those conferences where they're great, but it's a lot of information and it's not very action focused. And so we might leave feeling inspired or even having a lot of ideas, but almost overwhelmed. And then those materials end up kind of sitting on the desk forever and we don't take action.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to make sure that the Fab Fempreneur Fest experience was transformational, not just inspirational or informational, but transformational. And let's not forget, we are, as Fab Fempreneurs, we want to have fun. So it's not just all serious business. It's, yes, getting down and dirty on the business stuff with myself and other speakers and mastermind time, but it's also really authentic relationship building and some play time built in. And then also at the end of day one, we are doing an optional burlesque dance class. So we fold in the fun.
I love it. Yes. Well, I know you like to dance, as do I. So
Yes.
I'm sure that we'll be dancing, well, obviously burlesque dancing, but I'm sure other dancing as well. I have done a little burlesque, well, not dancing, not performing, just taking a class. And it was definitely fun. If you had a burlesque name, maybe you've already been through this, Sarah, what would it be?
Oh my gosh! Well, I've never done burlesque, so that's
okay.
So I'm like, I don't know what's a burlesque name. Maybe Saucy Sara.
Oh. Could be. Okay. Mine was when I went through this burlesque class with Nikki Heritados, who you know. My burlesque name was Cheetah.
Oh, that is so funny.
So there you go.
Okay, well then, see, I haven't had the experience yet, so I'll have to be thinking in advance, brainstorming some cool names.
Yes.
But yeah, definitely, we have a mixer at the end of day 2, a celebration mixer with dancing. Regular, just break it out, old school, freestyle dancing. Definitely, but anybody who wants to find out more about that can go to our website, fabfempreneurs.com. Down there, and really excited about the speaker lineup that's forming. And we have amazing sponsors. We still have some sponsorship opportunities right now, looking for women that want to not only attend and participate, but gain another level of visibility and involvement to have that kind of another layer of interaction with fellow attendees.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, looking forward to it, Sarah. Thank you so much for your time today. I know your story well, but I've learned some new things today. So I appreciate you sharing your story and background with us.
Awesome. It's been so fun. Always love chatting with you.
Thank you for joining this week's episode of Flight Club, sponsored by Hera Hub. We look forward to sharing more success stories with you soon.